Okay, we will start. So again, people will probably still join us, but we have a good amount of participation right now. So welcome everybody to the Michigan Catholic Conference webinar on managing idle buildings. Today is October 29th, 2020. It's been an interesting year for sure. And because of that, we have a lot of buildings that we would typically be using. So we thought this would be a good webinar for you folks. My name is John Greenburg. I've been at Michigan Catholic Conference for 16 years as of this week, actually, and I am the risk control specialist here. I assist with the insurance needs, the loss prevention, safety, and education piece, obviously, which brings us together today. I also have Vince Andrews here as well. Before I introduce him to you, I want to let you know that there is later on. First of all, this is what you should see. Everyone should see this interface on their computer. And there are some features down here that today we are most likely only going to use the Q&A, which will be at the end, which is right there on the bottom of your screen. After the video, we will have a Q&A section where we welcome all your questions at that point. So if you could save your questions till then, that's what we will do. Vince, you mind introducing yourselves to the group now, please?
Hello, everyone. It's Vince Andrews. I work closely with John. I'm the manager of the claims risk management area. And we look forward to the time when we can all get together in person. But in the meantime, this appears to be our best way of trying to reach out to you with hopefully some topical information that relates to taking care of your premises. John has put together, in conjunction with our excess carrier travelers, this information on idle buildings. And as John mentioned, we believe it's very topical at this point. So with that, I think John is going to introduce the webinar piece that was put together by travelers. And as he stated, we'll have a Q&A after that. We want to keep this to 30, 35 minutes because we know your time is valuable. So with that, John, would you like to take over?
Certainly. Thank you. So this is again it was a lunch and learn webinar that travelers did back in April. Some of our parishes, I think, joined us for that. And there's a few things I want you to keep in mind. This is Travelers is our excess property underwriter. So they are on our account, but they are also a global insurance company. So when they did this lunch and learn, they presented it to everybody that could participate so that they might talk about some commercial buildings, general industry type things. Not a lot of it, but some of the things won't apply. There's also a comment about upcoming weather like hurricanes and floods. And again, this was done in April. So when you hear that, our upcoming weather is more about the cold temperatures, things like that, which they will talk about as well. But I just want to let you know that this was pre-recorded, so it's going to it's gonna might be confusing a little bit. But first, I want to take a poll. I like to do this every time that we have a webinar. I like to see where everyone is from as far as their roles at the your parishes. So everyone should see this poll. If you could just let us know if you're from the maintenance group or bookkeeping, etc. We'll let this go for a minute, 30 seconds or so. The votes are coming in. Almost there. Couple more. All right, I think I'll end it right there. People don't know. They can hit other. Okay, I'm gonna end it right there. We get almost everybody. So I'll share this. So most of the folks are business manager administration, which is good. You'll learn a lot from this. Maintenance, of course, will be a lot of things from this video that you'll need for that as well. Of course, bookkeeping is always important. We have one principal, welcome, and a couple clergy, so that's great too. So yeah, we're glad that we get a good mix of people because this covers a lot of different areas. It's only a 15-minute runtime, so it's short, it's brief. We will have the Q&A at the end, like I said. So I'll run the video in a minute. One more question I want to do is this question. So at your premises, how many idle buildings do you currently have? This gives us also a good indication of our audience and what kind of issues you may have. And it could be 0 that won't change either, I suppose. So you can put that 0 or answer 0 if that's the case. All right, we got a good number here. I'll share that. So most of us have 0 to 1 buildings, which is about what we figured. You know, a parish hall that's been used a lot, that's all of a sudden because of the coronavirus isn't being used as much, or just other factors. So that's good. A couple of you have 3 or more. Handful of you have 2, but most of you have 0 to 1. So again, this webinar will be good because it'll teach you some things to be aware of if your building does go idle, and obviously your building is currently idle. It'll help you with that too. So let's get started with the webinar, or with the video. And again, it's from April, so some of the things they mentioned upcoming weather, whatever. But other than that, everything is very important. We will have Q&A at the end, like I said. So here we go.
Thank you for joining us for today's Lunch and Learn on managing idle building risk. So the first thing that I'd like to do is I just want to take a moment to review our disclaimer. We'll be providing you with some best practices. During this session, we can't possibly cover every scenario you may encounter. Since every company and scenario is unique, it is your responsibility to take this information and apply it in a manner that best fits your company's unique situation. So my name is Rachel King, and I'll be your moderator for today. I'm here with Ken Katz and Don Safine, who are going to be your presenters. So Ken he's a property director in risk control, and Don is a risk control account executive. Both Ken and Don are principal and alternative committee members of NFPA 1600 standard on continuity, emergency, and crisis management. So at this time, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Ken.
Great. Thanks, Rachel. And welcome, everyone. I truly hope you and your families and friends are safe and healthy. And thank you also for attending today's webinar. We very much appreciate your interest in the topic and any collaboration that we have. Look, we are in difficult economic times brought about from the coronavirus and stay-in-place restrictions. That may mean buildings may be left idle until businesses can return to normal operations. Fires, water damage, theft, vandalism, or unwelcome visitors can all still happen, and no one may be around to address the loss or to quickly repair the damage. Idle buildings can attract vandals and thieves who take advantage of an unoccupied building. These are just a few of the scenarios that idle building owners face. To help ensure that your properties are ready to reopen when times has improved, Travelers has guidance to assist you with managing an idle property. For our discussion, we will be using the term idle to mean a temporary stoppage in the building's use or operations. An idle building is likely to contain equipment and storage, while for the purposes of this discussion, a vacant building will refer to a building that is empty without contents and no immediate plans to reopen. Just a quick sidebar to note that our policies often define the term vacant, but we are not using that definition for the purposes of this discussion. We will review what you can do to protect your property while your building is idle or vacant. We'll start with the outside first and then move inside. Specifically, we'll cover vandalism and theft, fire protection and detection, electricity and heat, water damage. We'll take a look ahead to reopening, and we'll discuss, yes, weather on the horizon, and then we'll close with some travelers' self-service resources. Dawn, can you start off the discussion with some recommendations regarding vandalism and theft?
Thanks, Ken. We appreciate all of you taking time today to join us. Now let's get started. The first element that we're going to discuss today is vandalism and theft. For buildings that are idle, it's important to inspect on a regular basis. Conduct regular daily rounds inside and outside the building that cover all key locations at the facility. Include items such as fire protection control valves, entrances into the building, even those ones in the back that might be hidden and not visible from the street, alarm panels, machinery, and other similarly important features. When taking steps to avoid vandalism and theft, it is imperative that the building appear it is being maintained and supervised. You might be familiar with the term curb appeal. It's usually associated with selling a property, but it's also a telltale sign that a property is being both monitored and maintained. Basic landscaping still needs to be completed. And yes, your grass continues to grow and you need to mow it. Mail and newspapers should be stopped or forwarded to an appropriate address. Even if all mail is stopped, we all see those paper flyers that get left at the front door of a building, and it broadcasts that the property is idle. The same with regular trash pickup. Maintaining proper housekeeping and upkeeping is one of the first steps to take. Buildings that appear idle and poorly maintained may also be seen as a target for arson. According to NFPA research on intentional fires, during 2010 to 2014, an estimated average of over 260,000 intentional fires were reported by municipal fire departments each year, of which about 20% were structure fires. Of those, a quarter of them occurred in idle properties. Unsecured idle properties had double the fire rate compared to secured idle properties. The most common fires involve trash or waste, but a disproportionate share of the property damage resulted from fires beginning with flammable or combustible liquids or gases. Yard storage, in particular, needs to be managed. Areas surrounding the building should be clear of combustible materials, including idle pallets and dumpsters. Do not store combustibles near the building exterior, where if ignited, it could spread fire to the building. According to the NFPA research paper, the leading items ignited for intentional fires were vegetation and waste. Even more so, dumpsters or yard storage against the building can also provide an avenue to access the roof for trespassers. Exterior lighting, that can be a deterrent for break-ins. Providing exterior lighting for the outside yard storage area, parking areas, and again, all entrances inside the building. Building security plays a significant role in protecting your building. You want to keep the public stakeholders informed. An important step is to notify emergency services such as police, fire department, alarm company, and yes, your insurance agent about the change in conditions that the property will be idle, and provide emergency notification in the event they need to contact you. If you have a security alarm system, it should be inspected, tested, and utilized whenever the building is not occupied. If you don't have a security alarm system, consider installing a UL-listed central station burglar alarm system. An alternative can be a guard service to provide security and to conduct patrols or rounds. Or if you have a trusted employee, that can be another option to evaluate to perform this service. Monitored closed caption TV or CCTV, webcams, or other options to consider. With fewer people on site, the risk of a break-in is elevated. Buildings should be secured by locking all doors, windows, roof hatches, and gates. And yes, you need to remove those roof access ladders or lock them so that they will be inaccessible. The access to the building should be controlled. you need to understand who has access to the building, whether it's vendors or employees, to help manage the potential for property theft or damage. Finally, make sure ignitable liquids in the buildings have been returned to their approved storage locations, or you might think about taking them off-site. By minimizing ignition sources and quantities of ignitable liquids, the risk of a fire and arson is lowered. Well, now that we've discussed some of the inside points, let's hear about fire protection from Ken.
Thanks, Dawn, and interesting. So automatic sprinkler systems are one of your first lines of protection against fire. Your sprinkler system should continue to be inspected, tested, and maintained as if the building was in operation. Inspection, testing, and maintenance is how you ensure that the automatic sprinkler system will work in the event of a fire. Consider the same for other special fire protection systems. NFPA studies have shown that many sprinkler systems that fail were caused by the equipment simply being shut off. Testing confirms the system is operable. Sprinkler control valves should be locked in the open position to prevent tampering and should be visually inspected frequently to verify that they're in their open position and ready to operate. Similar to the automatic sprinkler system, fire detection devices also need to be inspected, tested, and maintained as if the building was in operation. In order to promptly notify the fire department in the event of a fire, an approved fire detection system should automatically transmit to a UL-listed central station or directly to the fire department or public dispatcher. Dawn, let's go back to you, and can you review our guidance on electricity and heat and then water damage?
Thanks, Ken. You know, I always find it shocking to hear and learn that NFPA's research has determined that sprinkler systems that fail are simply having the system turned off. Testing is the most effective way to make sure that the system is operational. Well, let's get started talking about the building's utilities, starting with electricity and heat. Basically, all your building utilities must be maintained. It's okay to turn off non-essential electrical circuits. However, you must determine which circuits are needed for items that are critical, such as fire alarm control panel, electric fire pumps, sump pumps, dry pipe sprinkler air compressors, your closed caption TV, security cameras, exterior lightings, and basic interior lighting. By turning off non-essential equipment, you may reduce the likelihood of a loss. In fact, NFPA has identified electrical panels as a common target for intentional fires. Basic building heating must also be maintained. I know some of you are still experiencing snow and winter weather, so those building temperatures need to be maintained at least 40 degrees to prevent water lines and sprinkler pipes from freezing. We'll talk more about that in a little while. If your heating system uses a storage tank for oil, LP, or propane gas, confirm sufficient fuel supplies are available to heat the building. For those of you that are in warmer, humid climates, humidity controls may be necessary to limit the potential for mold growth. You may need to provide conditioned air to maintain a temperature of no more than 85 degrees or even lower based on your unique circumstances. Well, let's go back to water damage. Idle buildings are subject to increased potential for water damage due to lack of routine inspections, maintenance of pipe leaks or other plumbing issues, or even undetected weather-related damage. We've already mentioned earlier to keep building temperatures above 40 degrees to prevent pipes from freezing. During cold weather, it's also important to check that building openings are shut, such as doors and windows, but also roof hatches and any other access points. Similar to electricity, it may be acceptable to turn off water to non-essential devices. You may even want to consider monitored temperature alarms or water flow or leak detection sensors for quick notification of abnormal conditions. Regular building and roof inspections are key to prevent and limit water damage. Any identified leaks should be repaired immediately. Early detection of roof damage can minimize water backup and leaks. Also, inspect gutters and downspouts, scrubbers, and drains for debris. Water needs to be able to drain off the roof and away from the building. Same with inspecting basement areas and concealed space. As we mentioned, unoccupied buildings are at a risk as no one is around to notice the problem and fix it. Now let's turn to Ken to talk about the next steps.
Great. Thanks again, Dawn. So let's talk about looking ahead to reopening. Sometime soon, you will need to reopen your business, and the time to begin those discussions is now. You need to develop a strategic plan for how you will reopen. Prior to having personnel return to the business, conduct a thorough inspection of your equipment and building systems. Complete deferred preventative maintenance for machinery and equipment. Same with needed inspection, testing, and maintenance. Follow the manufacturer recommendations before restarting any machinery and equipment that has been idle, with particular attention to interlocks and safety devices. For your operations, you must identify critical business processes, essential positions, functions, and people and resources required to sustain those critical business functions. Think, how will you prioritize production? Consider your backlog and how to handle the ramp up. Do you have the right supplies for ramping back up? Do you have sufficient supplies and access to other outside resource needs? Will your suppliers be able to meet your production demands? Staff, contractors, and supplies may be limited at the outset. Consider that absenteeism will be likely. Will you have sufficient employees, particularly any with essential job functions? Maintenance of key equipment to keep operations running will be needed. Same with safety, management, logistics, IT, security, and others. Will you need to hire and train new employees or even temporary workers? Will you have new training needs or gaps to fill? Is cross-training employees an option? Do you support employee assistance and reintroduction to the workforce? There may be employees with recovery needs or family circumstances that need your support. Bringing needed staff back to work will be an element of your success or potentially failure. Do you need a communications plan to stakeholders regarding restarting your operations? You will need to notify key personnel, top customers, important vendors, and critical suppliers that your operations are restarting. Will customer confidence regarding health and safety need to be addressed? Do you have any new vendors that need formal supplier assessments and audits? Do they meet your quality, production, and product safety requirements? Can these vendors provide uninterrupted goods and services? Is there appropriate risk transfer and insurance in place? Once operations have restarted, and look, at the appropriate time, assess how your business continuity plans and supply chains performed, and make any necessary adjustments. Document your lessons learned, whether good or bad. Finally, we would be remiss not to mention that weather is on the horizon. I know we all have a lot to think about now, but as you look to restart your operations, don't forget that hurricane, flood, and damaging hail and tornado season are fast approaching. Prepare now for those events. Those events can be just as disruptive at a time you can ill afford to be down again.
Thank you for joining us, and this will conclude today's Lunch and Learn. Thank you and stay safe.
Okay, that was the Travelers Lunch and Learn on managing idle building risks. I hope everyone gleaned a lot of information from it, a lot of useful information. We're opening it up to questions and answers in a minute, but I do have one more poll. It's more of a quiz, if you will. So what minimum temperature should you maintain your idle buildings? I believe it was mentioned a couple times. So the answers are coming in. I'll wait another couple seconds. Those of you who are afraid to answer, just pick one. All right, I'll end it there. I'll share this too. So yeah, so the answer is 40. which most of you did get, 74% of you, which is great. Now, of course, you could go warmer, right? But that is just more costly, right? I mean, there's nothing wrong with doing 50 and above, 55, 60. But that again, that's that you're paying for the electricity, you're paying for the gas, fuel, oil, what have you, um, to heat the building. But the minimum is 40. That's what you should have on those idle buildings to make sure pipes don't freeze, etc. So
John,
we
can
will
I add a comment here, please?
absolutely, yes.
Um, For our older buildings that have typically steam heat, you have to remember that while you may have it set at 40 or 45, where the thermostat is, the pipes are still in the walls. They could be above one of your pipe organs, et cetera, et cetera. So it would be advantageous for you to check the actual temperature in the distant areas of the churches and schools to make certain that sufficient heat is in all areas.
Yes, thank you, Vince. And because a lot of our structures are older, the insulation may not be as great, so 40 may not make sense in your locale. So you may want to do 45, 50 because of, as Vince mentioned, the pipes are typically between the interior and the exterior and the walls, and depending on the age of that building, you could have those pipes could freeze even if the rest of the building where the thermostat is, right, is at 40. Doesn't mean there's corners and pockets of the building that may not heat as efficiently, might be less. So um, 50 degrees might be a good rule of thumb as well, but 40 is the minimum as the code, as they said, the recommendation. But again, we wouldn't mind if you kept that a little higher. So questions and answers, you at the bottom of your screen, like I said, there is a little Q&A button. You can type in the answer and we will answer those as they come in. If you don't have any questions, that's fine too. You can, this is a snapshot of this is our actual website, micatholic.org. That has our phone number, and then Vince and I down here, our department, here's our email addresses as well. So I'm just gonna wait here, and if you have any questions, we will answer them. If you have a question that you don't want to ask here, again, you can email Vince or me. There's our email addresses on the screen there. But I encourage you to ask a question now when we have many other people that may have a similar question. It's like the kid in class that had a question, didn't want to raise their hand. But you can type, and I believe it's anonymous. I don't think you see the questions that are being asked. I think Vince and I see them, and that's it. But I will keep talking for another minute or two, and if we don't have any questions, we will end the webinar. I do want to let you be aware that next month, November 12th, as part of the Bookkeeper webinar series, Risk Management is doing one for that, and it's online resources that we have available. So I will be on that in a couple weeks to talk to you about all the different online resources we have available to our people. So, one is our website, one is the Traveler's website. Some of you that were on my loss prevention webinars earlier may already know that because I talked about a little bit about it then. There are a couple questions that were asked earlier, and before we got started. What one just came up? So if we come, Vince, you want to answer that one?
Yeah, the question is what functions could be accomplished to reduce insurance costs. Um, we're all in a self-insured environment where your diocese pays the first $1 million of a claim. And all those claims are looked at by actuaries, and we are given projections as to what type of prices that we need to get to cover the whole insurance. So anything you can do to accomplish safety in your building is ultimately going to reduce the overall actuarial amount for your diocese. Unfortunately, we don't have any way to assess a reduction at a particular location, but remember that you're of the bigger whole being your diocese.
Okay. So we answered that one. As a question earlier was similar to that. There was a question earlier that mentioned if the webinar is going to address current issues like airflow recommendations. They did talk about a little bit as far as heating and cooling and things like that. But if your question was specifically airflow as far as keeping the air filtered and things like that during the virus, then Vince did answer that privately to the person who asked. That's you probably need to check an expert in that field in the airflow and filtration field to help you better with that.
Yeah, and that could be medical experts, or it could be OSHA or MyOSHA. I know they have some recommendations per se. I don't know them off the top of my head though.
Okay, any other questions? And again, you can contact us later. We will address them that way. I'll wait another minute or so. Vince, any final thoughts or comments?
We've all been doing a very good job, knock on wood. Our actuarial estimates have been coming down, not very much, but a little bit. However, counterbalancing that is the drastic increase in costs for the excess insurance. Due to the COVID-19, the excess markets are unsure of how this is going to all unfold, and they're really afraid of some judiciaries opening up the policies to cover some cost for the pandemic shutdown. 99.9% of the insurance policies out there do not cover any costs for the shutdown. So they're hoping that remains the case, but they're in kind of a, I don't want to call it panic mode, but they're in a reserved mode right now. We saw some increases in our property last year that were about 28-30% in some areas. In other areas, we were able to get those in line. So anything you can do to help us all out in reducing losses, and we're not only talking about property losses, we're talking about workers' compensation, we're talking about auto losses and liability losses. Our principal duty is to make certain that we have a safe premise to protect our parishioners, guests, and students. So thank you for whatever you can help us with.
Okay, I think that will do it. And like I said, any questions, feel free to contact us another time, call us. We try to make ourselves available to you all week. And yeah, so thank you. Be safe. Continue being safe. Have a great afternoon. And thank you for your participation today.
And thank you for the thank yous.
Yes, that too. Thank you.